The story of Sandy Hook is a tale of profound tragedy, compounded by a cruel and baseless conspiracy. On December 14th, 2012, a horrific event unfolded in the quiet town of Newtown, Connecticut. A gunman entered Sandy Hook Elementary School, forever altering the lives of countless individuals. 20 young children, all first graders, had their lives stolen from them in an act of unspeakable violence. 6 heroic educators also perished while trying to protect their students. The nation was plunged into a state of shock and profound grief. As the world mourned, a dark undercurrent of disbelief and suspicion began to fester online. This was the genesis of the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory, a monstrous fiction that would haunt the victims' families for years. Proponents of this theory, led by figures like Alex Jones, claimed the entire tragedy was a hoax. They alleged it was a false flag operation staged by the government. The supposed motive was to manipulate public opinion in favor of stricter gun control laws. These theorists audaciously claimed that no one had actually died at Sandy Hook. They posited that the grieving parents and families were crisis actors hired to play a role. This cruel narrative spread like wildfire across fringe websites, forums, and social media platforms. Amateur sleuths dissected news footage, searching for supposed inconsistencies. They misinterpreted the chaos and confusion of a live breaking news event as proof of a conspiracy. Every pained expression from a parent was scrutinized and labeled as fake. Every moment of composure was twisted into evidence of a lie. The pain of the families was not only dismissed but actively mocked. The parents who had just lost their 6- and 7-year-old children, the nightmare was only beginning. They were subjected to relentless harassment, both online and in person. Conspiracy theorists would show up in their town, filming and confronting them. They received death threats and vile messages accusing them of faking their children's deaths. Some parents were forced to move multiple times to escape the torment. The gravesites of the young victims were desecrated by those who believed the lie. The conspiracy was not a victimless crime. It created a new wave of victims. The emotional and psychological toll on these families is immeasurable. They had to defend the memory of their dead children against a tide of hatred. The theory was built on a foundation of complete falsehoods. Official reports, including the extensive investigation by the Connecticut State's Attorney, were ignored. These reports detailed the horrific reality of the event with painstaking accuracy. Death certificates, autopsy reports, and eyewitness accounts were all dismissed by believers. The conspiracy required a level of coordination and secrecy that is simply impossible. It would have involved hundreds, if not thousands, of willing participants. This included police, firefighters, paramedics, doctors, parents, and government officials. The idea that such a massive group could maintain a perfect conspiracy for over a decade is ludicrous. Yet for some, the lie was more comforting than the terrifyingly random nature of the truth. Believing in a conspiracy provides a sense of order in a chaotic world. It suggests that powerful forces are in control, rather than events being tragically meaningless. This psychological appeal is a powerful driver of conspiracy belief. The Sandy Hook families, however, decided to fight back. They could not stand by while their children's existence was denied. Several families filed defamation lawsuits against Alex Jones, the most prominent purveyor of the hoax theory. These legal battles would stretch on for years, a grueling process for the already grieving parents. They had to recount the worst day of their lives in court, over and over again. They faced down the man who had inspired so much hatred against them. The trials revealed the cynical nature of Jones's operation. Evidence showed he profited immensely from spreading the Sandy Hook lies. His broadcasts about the conspiracy drove traffic to his website, where he sold various products. He monetized the suffering of these families. In 2022, the families finally achieved a measure of justice. Juries in both Texas and Connecticut delivered staggering verdicts against Jones. He was ordered to pay nearly $1.5 billion in damages to the families. The verdicts were a powerful rebuke of his lies and the pain he caused. It was a declaration that truth matters and that lies have consequences. During the trials, Jones himself was forced to admit the massacre was 100% real. This admission, however, came far too late for the families who had endured a decade of torment. The legal victories were not just about money. They were about reclaiming the narrative. They were about honoring the memory of the 26 lives that were lost. The story of the Sandy Hook conspiracy is a cautionary tale for the digital age. It demonstrates how easily misinformation can be weaponized. It shows how vulnerable grieving people are to targeted harassment. The internet provides a fertile ground for such theories to grow. Anonymity emboldens people to say things they would never say in person. Echo chambers reinforce false beliefs, creating communities of delusion. The fight against disinformation requires constant vigilance. It requires critical thinking and a commitment to verifying sources. It also requires holding those who spread harmful lies accountable. The Sandy Hook families showed immense courage in their pursuit of accountability. They transformed their unimaginable pain into a fight for truth. Their struggle highlights a deep sickness in parts of our information ecosystem. Conspiracy was never a legitimate intellectual debate. It was an attack on reality itself. It was an assault on the shared grief of a community and a nation. The theorists offered no credible evidence for their claims. Their arguments were a circular loop of suspicion and baseless accusation. They preyed on the distrust of institutions and the media. This distrust created a market for alternative, however false, explanations. The legacy of Sandy Hook is twofold. It is the legacy of a horrific tragedy that took 26 innocent lives. It is also the legacy of a battle for truth in an age of rampant disinformation. Families of the victims have become unexpected soldiers in that battle. Their victory in court was a significant moment in that ongoing war. It sent a message that there is a high price to pay for profiting from lies. The conspiracy, however, has not entirely vanished. It still lurks in the dark corners of the internet. Some people remain convinced of the hoax, immune to facts or reason. This demonstrates the durable power of a well-crafted lie. The trauma inflicted by the conspiracy is a permanent scar. Changed the way we think about the aftermath of public tragedies. It revealed a vulnerability to mass delusion fueled by modern technology. The story is not just about a shooting, but about the society that grappled with it. The initial shock of the event was universal. The subsequent division was a uniquely modern phenomenon. First responders who witnessed the scene were also targeted. They were accused of being part of the cover-up. Their trauma was compounded by these baseless accusations. The town of Newtown became a target for conspiracy tourism. Outsiders arrived with cameras, seeking to expose the truth. This invasion of privacy further tormented the community. The community's effort to heal was constantly disrupted. The conspiracy theory fed on a pre-existing political polarization. It became a proxy for the larger culture wars. The victims were dehumanized, turned into symbols in a political game. This dehumanization is what allowed the cruelty to flourish. The fight for the truth was also a fight for empathy. was a plea to see the human beings at the center of the tragedy. The financial cost to Alex Jones was historic. It represented a new legal precedent for media accountability. Broadcasters cannot simply invent facts without consequence. The verdict affirmed that speech has limits, especially when it incites harassment. The family's persistence was key to this outcome. They refused to be silenced or intimidated. Their testimony in court was powerful and heartbreaking. They forced the world to confront the real-world harm of the conspiracy. The conspiracy was a symptom of a deeper societal problem. The erosion of trust in fundamental institutions is a dangerous trend. When people lose faith in shared reality, society begins to fracture. The Sandy Hook story is a stark warning of where that path leads. It leads to a world where grief is not sacred. It leads to a world where truth is subjective. It leads to a world where victims are victimized again. Families fought back not just for themselves, but for a better world. They fought for a world where truth and decency prevail. The memory of the 20 children and 6 educators demands nothing less. Their lives were real, and their loss is a tragedy. No conspiracy can ever change that fundamental, heartbreaking truth. The conspiracy theory attempted to erase the victims. The court cases helped to write them back into history. The digital platforms that hosted the lies were slow to react. This highlighted the debate over platform responsibility. Eventually, many platforms deplatformed Jones and his content. This action was seen by some as a necessary step to curb harm. Others decried it as an issue of free speech. The debate continues to be a central issue in technology and society. The Sandy Hook conspiracy showed that online speech is not without real-world impact. Words typed in anonymity can lead to tangible suffering. The family's struggle made this connection undeniable. They drew a straight line from the broadcast to the harassment. The tragedy of Sandy Hook should have been a moment of unity. The conspiracy turned it into a moment of profound division. It exploited a national trauma for profit and ideology. Remembering the truth of Sandy Hook is an act of resistance. It is a refusal to let lies have the final word. The story is a painful but necessary lesson. It is a lesson about the fragility of truth and the resilience of love. The love the parents have for their children was the fuel for their fight. That love proved to be more powerful than the loudest lie.